thought, to start off, I've got a couple of questions that I'm going to throw out. And I thought it would be pertinent to ask David, since he's the newest returnee, a quick question. I mean, David, what made you want to come back and start your venture in Sri Lanka?
I mean, the opportunities were there, and I always wanted to come back, even though I left over 30 years ago. I sold our businesses in Melbourne, and here we are.
And that obviously didn't just happen, overnight. Obviously,
we had some planning, and I was lucky to have the Navaloka group behind, and and I think there was a market for what we are doing, because we had so many Chinese restaurants and Italian restaurants, and not a traditional Sri Lankan restaurant, and the market was there, and that's what we did.
Something you said to me earlier, it was you were selling beers to Australians in Australia, and now you've come back selling curries to Sri Lankans. I mean, that's wonderful. Did that opportunity just kind of present itself?
No, we sort of did a bit of research, and that's what was missing in the market, and yeah.
So I mean, there are other opportunities for potential new entrepreneurs looking at.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely. Charlene, I mean, there's obviously, you came back to a family business, and an established family business at that. And you guys came and kind of did some unique stuff by launching a new brand and this concept. Any insights you can give us with Spa Salon?
Just to quickly put in a nutshell what the thinking behind it and how it came to be. When I came back in the early 2000s, I quite accidentally walked into the family business, which I had not planned on. And at that point, my brother had already come in and already upscaled it. And that was my mother's brand, which was a brand called Janet, which is a mass market cosmetic brand. And both he and I worked on it. We upscaled it to where it is today, and that brand still does exist. It's in about 12,000 stores right around Sri Lanka, and we are right up there with the multinationals fighting in those mass market cosmetic ranges, segments rather. So Spa Salon came up halfway through that when we had a chat, and we decided that we had to grow, and we were looking at avenues of growing, and we were quite plugged into to wellness, cosmetics, lifestyle, and so on, and we recognized this potential for green ways of living, and how internationally going green was becoming a trend. And also people were looking into all sciences. So we looked back into Sri Lanka itself, and we found this great opportunity in Ayurveda, which was an amazing science that was our heritage, which was indigenous to both Sri Lanka and India. And we decided, if presented well, that this could create a great opportunity both locally and to upscale it and take it outside of Sri Lanka as well. So that was the thinking behind Spa Salon. And with the background of the family business, we had the supply channels, we had the manufacturing infrastructure, we had a certain amount of know-how. We just needed to add on to it. So that framework was great, and that's how Spa Salon came to be. And right now we are in 9 countries with our own branded stores and spas. We just signed the 10th country, which is South Africa, recently as well. We're looking at another 15 countries in the next financial year. So we managed to take this humble science of Ayurveda, and we wanted to take it global, and we are getting there.
And you've branded it as something much more than just the smelly old low-end treatment that it used to be.
See, we launched this new platform that we refer to as Luxury Ayurveda, and around it is where we built the branding, and of course we had to create the products that didn't just have a luxury tag on it, but carried a sense of luxury, but keeping the science intact. And it's being received very well in all the markets we are entering right now.
That's fantastic. now, I'm just going to keep asking these questions because I'm hoping that the audience is going to gain from all your experiences, obviously. And there might be future entrepreneurs out there who've got maybe links, family businesses. I heard someone before say that their parents or something wanted to give them land and they want to come and exploit that. So, I mean, there's opportunities that we can leverage. The next question really is to Nathan. The first question actually, and I'll just ask the second one afterwards, is, you came back to Sri Lanka 15, 16 years ago, and the entrepreneurial landscape obviously would have changed significantly. I mean, could you just give us some insights on that?
And I think Sanjeev captured this well earlier and in the previous panel. I think the opportunity for starting businesses and having an entrepreneurial sense with a high risk didn't really create an environment to have entrepreneurs. So people sort of looked at traditional industries to really look at jobs, etc. It was either join a multinational, it was the old Sri Lankan traditional thinking, be a professional. And there wasn't really a culture. I wish I was 15 years younger now with a lot more energy to start my own brand of whatever. But there are so many opportunities for entrepreneurs now, and the environment is such that you can go into any industry and there's so many opportunities. It's how smart you are in sort of linking up those opportunities to a business model. Because most people want this whole glamorous area or industry to invest in and want to be a $200, $300 million company. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to start somewhere. And we've got great example through Spa Ceylon and others who've just started somewhere and built on that to really make it an international brand. And we should be proud as Sri Lankans to see international brands. I'm always proud to see Spa Ceylon or Dilmah in the international arena and in hotels or wherever. And I think that's what Sri Lanka is, giving opportunities to people to come back and do that now.
Oh, yes, and I mean, one of the interesting, I'm just going to lead on this question obviously, but you as the Chief Growth Officer of MAS, one of the proud flagship companies in this country now, you've got very aggressive growth rates that you're targeting, and part of that is going to be obviously stuff, your mandate, what you're going to be doing. Any insights that you can give us? I mean, obviously don't share your strategic plan. You can if you want to. But how are you, what are you trying to do? I mean, to grow the business to that level, $2 billion in the next few years, is that going to happen through partnerships or acquisitions with other entrepreneurial businesses? And, maybe if
Sure. I wish I had brought my PowerPoint presentation to do to all you guys, but in the scheme of things, I think there's so much opportunity both within the country and outside the country. We have grown our business through partnerships, and 27 years ago, our first business was through partnership. Last month, our newest business is through partnership. So we're always looking at partnership and entrepreneurs who've got business ideas that we're investing in. We feel that there is great appetite within Sri Lanka now to really not really diverse your business strategy, but also look at adjacent opportunities that you created. So our knowledge of manufacturing, our knowledge of branding, our knowledge of supply chain management, all of that can create any business opportunity that we want. What we've actually come across is whenever we go into the international arena and really brainstorm with the likes of people like Microsoft or Apple or whoever else, they have similar business issues that we have in this country. They have the same issues there. It's not any different. And the opportunities within other industries also require similar management styles and leadership levels as well. So we're really looking at adjacent business opportunities that leverage our internal strength, which is people, partnership and process and product, and also try and use our supply chain that we've developed to look at other industries that we could go and start with. We are looking at entrepreneurs both in the digital space as well as the medical space to really invest in, and also in different brands as well. So there is opportunities that we are currently looking at within this region. And
sorry, one last question and then we'll move on. I think it's also important for us to kind of understand a little bit from the audience, I guess. How is MAS leveraging the diaspora? I mean, you know, you've obviously got a lot of employees who, you know, diaspora coming back, and how's that worked for you guys?
I mean, it's worked very well. I mean, every week I get at least 5 to 6 applications for positions at both the senior, middle management, junior levels of people who want to come back and work with us. And that is really, one, because we are a professional organization, two, we are a multinational organization, and three, I think there is so much business opportunities that we have within Sri Lanka. One of the things that I've seen is that people feel that the management style in Sri Lanka actually gives you a much broader general management level of responsibility, whereas the jobs that they've worked on overseas is much more specialized. We are attracting people coming back from Apple, people are coming back from Citibank and PwC from overseas, and even university students who've completed their MBAs are coming in for 12 months, 24 months internships with us. So we're finding it quite easy to attract the right people to come back to MAS, and we'll continue to do so because we believe that we are a multinational organization, and we don't want to just rely within the local talent pool that we have, which is a lot more difficult to find good people within at this moment.
Thank you. Look, it's never all that rosy. I mean, I know there are issues. Entrepreneurs, we've all faced it as entrepreneurs coming back to Sri Lanka. But Priyanka, I just thought maybe you could give us a little insight into some of the challenges that may face an entrepreneur coming back to Sri Lanka with, you know, limited experience of.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge that a lot of us would have faced, Manju, is mainly on the cultural differences. You know, when somebody comes back, we have in Sri Lanka certain sort of, you know, mechanisms of managing these cultural issues. You are exposed to a lot of other the holiday systems that we have, to the cultural system. So I think you have to be a bit more sensitive to that area. Then I think the other thing is also, I think, is how do you go and attract the best quality staff out there. I think in certain industries we are seeing that as a challenge at different levels. So that again, as Nathan said, I think, you know, the diaspora helps. A lot of people who really wants to come back would like to stay back, but I think the challenge there again is, are we able to retain them on a long-term basis, invest on them, retain them, and then take that company to the next level. These two I see as major issues, and of course the number of people in certain industries. I know if you take the IT side of things, I mean, every year what comes out is, you know, we are short of 5,000 coming out to the job market, you know, 3,000, 4,000, you know, these are the numbers that have been thrown out there. So again, you know, these are some of the challenges that you might face, because you might decide to go to India and then have 1,000 people compared to 100 people operation in Sri Lanka. Sometimes, you know, that's the difference. But I think within Sri Lanka we have enough and more examples where companies have actually grown out of local talent, as well as grown heavily and then gone out of Sri Lanka. So cultural differences, job, the sort of the correct person to be attracted, I think these are some of the challenges that you might face. But I think that is getting cleared up to a great extent. But so still we see these as certain challenges in the market.
If I may just add to that. When it comes to challenges, this is something that was brought up by a panel earlier in the day as well. This whole thing about infrastructure and not having the kind of infrastructure to drive certain industries or certain segments of markets and so on. One of the challenges we had was when we came up with Sparsadon, we were positioning it as a high-end personal care or cosmetic brand. Having been in the industry for quite a while, we knew where cosmetics sell, but they were not high-end. So there was no room for high-end cosmetics to be sold in Sri Lanka, really. Because if you really look at Sri Lanka, we still don't have malls, like proper malls. So it was a huge problem. Okay, we want to open our stores. Yes, we want to pitch it high-end. Where do we position ourselves? So then that is the point we had to innovate. We had to create our own channels. So instead of looking for malls and things that were set up and ready to go, we started innovating and looking to where our kind of consumer or kind of target was going. So we went into places like Paradise Road, went to places like Barefoot, very unconventional for cosmetics. They never sold anything like that before, but our consumer was going there. So those of you who are coming in with great ideas, with brand ideas, and thinking, hey, we don't have channels, supply channels or delivery channels, whichever it is, I mean, that does not mean you can't innovate and find a way to deliver your product. So,
supply chain, think outside the box.
Absolutely, absolutely.
David, any issues you had in the food industry? I mean, obviously there are plenty, I'm sure.
I think the biggest problem is trained staff who have left the country. So you have to train them. That's the biggest challenge, is trained staff. How would I put it? There's opportunities. So because there are opportunities, I think that you got to take that as a. I'm just trying to put it the correct way.
So there's talent out there. You
have
can
to
train them.
Yeah,
and are you finding it difficult to keep them after you've trained them? Do they run away?
Yes, because
any way you can handcuff them to your restaurant? No. I mean, you know, obviously these are challenges that all these entrepreneurs or diaspora coming back will face. And I mean, are you using any innovative ways to now?
No, I mean, because you know the pay structure for the low end is what it is. You know, so with foreign employment in the Middle East, and so it is hard. So you have to sort of try and keep up to that level, which we are.
Sorry, Anakli. I mean, I've kept you away from the whole conversation. No. Anakli, coming to you, I mean, you know, one of the things that entrepreneurs will want to know, you're coming into a new country, you're going to set up a business. What kind of investment frameworks are available? You know, if you're a startup, you're a growth company, you know, could you just give us?
Yeah, so I think one of the challenges is, you know, if you're starting up and you're looking for capital, debt funding is not always easy. Sri Lanka is still, our banking system is still very much geared towards more mature collateral-based funding. That will change gradually, but that's not the case as yet. So what's good is that the ecosystem is growing though. So you have everything from the likes of angel funding, starting with people like the Lankan Angel Network, venture capital funds setting up, local PE funds being set up. We have 2 now that have about $100 million between them. The ecosystem is growing. So everything from a startup all the way to growth capital and beyond, including the end of seeing foreign investors who are coming in and looking at more mature companies. That, especially given the lack of the largest risk we had, which was the conflict, that's grown tremendously. So I think entrepreneurs can really look forward to interacting with these people, especially, and the other thing is, I think one is the capital angle, and the other is, you know, as you said, the challenge is coming back and seeing this landscape and how do you navigate it. One of the things that you get with the capital is knowledge. You know, people who are investors in these companies, you know, who will sit on your boards, who will help you navigate that system, and that's a big value add.
We briefly spoke about opportunities and window of opportunities that get narrower and narrower. With some of these challenges, obviously, you spot the opportunity to come and set up, don't you? I mean,
yeah, I think, you know, it's a country that's at an inflection point of growth, right? We are one of the high growth frontier markets in Asia. But with those opportunities, obviously there are challenges. So I think if you're prepared to look at those challenges, understand how to navigate it, and get in early, then you're the ones who stand to benefit the most. But, you know, there's a risk-reward thing there that you've got to be able to take those challenges on. And I think all the entrepreneurs here, you see that they've gone in and they've looked at an opportunity and taken the challenge and been flexible enough to work through that challenge and make it successful. I think that's kind of key.
I'm not sure. Are we ready to open up some questions with the audience? Are you guys ready to ask us any tough ones?
I was wondering whether you could elaborate on supporting networks for young entrepreneurs, for instance, and also for instance, what supporting service, or are there any supporting services provided by the government for young entrepreneurs in terms of tax incentives, in terms of credits? Maybe also more general, other than the economic development that is certainly happening, how would you promote, what would you say makes Sri Lanka really a great environment for young entrepreneurs at this time?
Anakli, do you want to, since you've been quiet all this time?
So in terms of networks, so one of the networks, as I mentioned, is, you know, like the Lankan Angel Network, which is a group of private individuals, private investors. There's about 55 members now. And what happens is, you know, they support entrepreneurs via investment. And then that network also, you know, as I said, they bring their value add is that they sit on the boards, they help the entrepreneurs, right? Similarly, there are several such networks that are now being set up across, you know, across the country. And these are being done both at national level as well as focused on certain areas. Like, you know, there's an incubation center for IT entrepreneurs in Jaffna. That's happening. Similarly, there's another, you know, incubation centers that are going to be set up in Colombo. So I think that ecosystem is definitely growing to support entrepreneurs. In terms of government incentives, obviously there are incentives that come under the BOI companies, but particularly for startups, I'm not clear as yet on tax incentives that have been given. This is very fledgling at the moment, you know. But most, the incentives are really much more structured towards industries right now, rather than necessarily what category of, you know, startup you're at or entrepreneur you're at.
Nathan, do you know you want to add anything more?
There are a couple of things actually. One is, I think the government is making certain policies and they're working on certain policies and we're working with them. I lead a group of young individuals as a chair of the Young Leaders Committee, which is focused on entrepreneurship and innovation in Sri Lanka through the Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka. We're looking at opportunities of giving individuals who have business ideas that initial capital, or individuals who've started a business who need that second capital, or individuals who want to now make it big, the opportunity of having access to capital as well. We're working with a lot of the organizations that Anakli mentioned as well to be part of the Ideas Center. And secondly, we're also working with the banks, the accountants, the legal teams, etc., to create a support structure around that as well, so that they have access to all of these companies as well. What we found with entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka who are entrepreneurs that are born and bred in Sri Lanka is that a lot of them have little knowledge of potentially creating a brand or creating protection for themselves legally through IP, etc. And those are the sort of things that really lacks in the market today, and people are not very supportive. The third thing is that the organizations that are willing to give capital approach most of these things as joint ventures, and they want 51% of any idea or business that people want to start. And that really discourages a lot of entrepreneurs from doing anything. And secondly, those who don't understand the whole magnitude of Series A, Series B, etc., they go and give the 51% up, and then they're stuck with very small percentage at the end, and they don't really have the strength and to really go against bigger corporations to take that percentage share back. So what's happening is that there is a lack of knowledge, and we're trying to create that lack of knowledge, sort of bridge that lack of knowledge within this country, and give individuals the opportunity to start their own organization. Secondly, I think from a government point of view, there are things that they're doing. For example, the triple taxation that came out on the innovation and R&D side, where companies can get a triple tax deduction on their turnover, is a good example of what the government has done in the last couple of years to really encourage people to spend money on research and development. So I think there are certain other policies which they're working on, and it will come through the budgets in the next year, which will help entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka.
I mean, entrepreneurship is still at its infancy here, really, isn't it? I mean, we've been a culture where everyone wants to go to university, learn a profession, get an evil day job, which pays you a salary at the end of the month, and climb the hierarchy. And parents, expect that. But that's all changing, so hopefully you guys are also going to come back and add a little bit more into that cultural change that's happening.
Basically, there's no 51% or anything like that. We encourage people to come. We've actually had, there's one entrepreneur, Stanford PhD, who actually come here and come up with a very good system. And NSF funded it, and then we actually partnered them with some of the IT companies to move on. So the government is now quite grant. It's small, I mean, it's a couple of million rupees. And there are ads in the newspapers every 6 months. So there is ways that the government is trying to do it. There's trying to emulate in the US, but they have basically grants for companies. So there are huge problems.
Thank you for that.
Hi, so this is my first time in this type of forum, and I also had the pleasure of being educated both here and in the States. And one of the biggest things that I learned, I mean, what I've experienced in Sri Lanka moving back, and I too moved back, it's been about 10 years now, and I love it. I love the decision to come back. And I'm also passionate about people going abroad and coming back to Sri Lanka. But recently, not so long ago, I had a terrible incident happen at a very leading restaurant. And we were yet to get a formal apology, and this goes to, I guess, out to the service sector, restaurants to begin with. And how open are you? Because for people who've been abroad, and I mean, we spoke about it in the first forum as well, they look for lifestyle and to go out with different dining experiences. But if you do have a negative one, how prepared are you to cater to it? Because I'm sure if something negative happens in the States or any other country, there's suing involved and it's quite serious. But I got the sense that, okay, I'm Sri Lankan, so it's not such a big deal having such a negative situation happen, and there was nothing, no forthright apology, which I'm still quite bitter about. So how open are you to handle your social media when you do get negative comments, and how do you plan on doing that going forward?
David, you.
My response is we try to, if there is a problem, we try to respond within sort of 24 hours. We're open for criticism. I mean, social media is such. I mean, I had an experience ringing a 5-star hotel to book for Christmas, and they said, is it on the 25th or the 26th, So, I mean, this is because there's not enough training, the staff's not trained. We, even if you go to TripAdvisor, you'd see for every comment that's been put on TripAdvisor about our restaurant, we will have an answer within 24 hours. And with a restaurant, it could be the Hilton, it could be anywhere. You could have problems, and people, I mean, it's generally, people don't like being criticized, but with the food industry, it could happen, and we do respond.
Just that comment. I think one of the things that's also happening is there's greater competition where you didn't have as many restaurants and services and whatever here, let's say 5 years ago. There's a tremendous amount that's happening. And within the next 4 years, you have a lot of large, hotels, restaurant chains all setting up. So the standards that exist. It's not a, well, if you're Sri Lankan, it's fine. This is all going to change and change dramatically over the next 4 years. So I think everybody has to up their game if they want to stay in these businesses.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things to that gentleman's question. So if you actually start a professional services company or software company here, you don't have to go through BOI or anything. As long as you bring foreign exchange to the country, it's zero tax. It's a great enticement, I think. I mean, people should know that.
Actually, Priyanka, do you want to?
Yeah, I think that's quite correct, but I think Anakali touched on that different sectors actually have different incentives that are given. So as a flat this thing, whether it is software or any other industry, if foreign currency is coming in, there are huge benefits that are being given to companies who actually bring in foreign currency to the country. So that's definitely there. And then of course, certain tax holidays that are being given for certain sectors. Certain incentives given in certain other sectors to encourage the local entrepreneurship. So it depends on different sectors and different, I mean, if somebody brings in a huge amount of investment, then they can negotiate with the government on a different term actually.
I'm not sure whether they've changed the rule, but as small as 10 million rupees being invested in intellectual property will give you a 5-year tax holiday on your income. So there are benefits available in the market. Please don't quote me. I'm not 100% sure whether they're still available though.
Yeah, I'm also not too sure, but I know it's actually, and also it's a stepwise increment as you go after the holiday period also. I'm not too sure about the periods actually.
Just clarify, like, there's no minimum investment requirement if you bring the foreign currency as a revenue.
That's right, yes. Correct.
Thank you.
Hi, this is a question for specifically Anarkali and the rest of the panel because I think I'm interested to learn a little bit about the organization that you're representing. I'm assuming a startup. And also how you navigate the regulatory burden because it seems to be slightly biased on these forums and the previous forums that IT sector, the service sector, the hotel sector have very low regulatory barriers to entry. But the financial services sector, when you take it, the exchange control regulations, the archaic unit trust code, I mean it was written in 1976, not changed, kid you not. And stock brokerage fees being fixed by the SEC, so no price differentiation, opportunities for a new entrant. I'm curious to understand what kind of company you run and what services it offers, and also how you navigate these very strict regulatory burdens that exist in our financial services sector.
Okay, so I'll answer this slightly different. I currently work for CIMB Investment Bank, which is actually a Malaysian investment bank. But previously I did do consultancy on my own. So in terms of regulation, yes, the banking sector is very well regulated here, quite strictly regulated. Investment banking, not so much. We actually don't come under any particular framework. So, and this is something that the SEC is going to address because as much as there may be, some may see some of the regulation as archaic, you also have the issue now that as we mature, a lack of regulation means that, you could have investors who are being given advice that the people of offering that advice are not, in a qualified position to do so. So I think we've got to find a balance between that. In terms of others who are entering the sector, I know that there are several private equity funds that have been set up locally recently. There are brokerages that are being taken over by members of the diaspora who are returning, who've been in London, New York, Hong Kong, who are coming back to invest in brokerages, invest in local investment banks. And I think the main reason for that is they see the opportunity. If you look at where we are right now, we're a very plain vanilla market. There's a lot that can be done. so when you're coming back from those markets, they see the scope and the ability to navigate this. I have to say that as the regulators, both the SEC and the central bank are very open to discussion, very flexible, and at least from my experience, they're very, very keen to grow the capital markets especially. So they're ready to look at new products and talk to people with experience from other markets on how best they can bring in regulation and innovation to bring these products in. So my experience has been pretty positive.
Thank you, Anand.
Just a quick question. Firstly, I want to reassure this gentleman, my kids moved here about 4 years ago and go to Gateway, great experience, and that's in comparison to a very nice school in the leafy suburbs of London. So we set up a business here about 4 years ago, new to Sri Lanka. I've only moved here 6 months ago. My wife moved here 4 years ago. BOI approved company, don't have a Sri Lankan network, don't necessarily need angel funding and so on, but very difficult in terms of getting approvals, regulation, red tape, bureaucracy, and so on. And if we didn't have Sri Lankan roots, we probably wouldn't have stayed and probably would have come here in the first place. What can be done to encourage people like us to make the step like we've done and then to keep us here and to grow us? It's our own funding, no investment. So, you know, we've taken a leap of faith, but do need the support of government and so on. And Suresh Shah mentioned, if you're going to set up a business, avoid government. When unfortunately you have to deal with government in terms of ministries and regulation and Pradeshia and all that kind of stuff, but very difficult when you haven't got the network. So just thoughts on what could be improved.
Do you want to take a shot at that?
I'll take a shot at that. So first of all, sorry you had that bad experience.
It's not been that bad, but it's just, it's difficult, you know, when you're new to the country.
And my thing is, you know, opportunities have challenges as well. And I think Sri Lanka is a land of opportunity at the moment. And some of the challenges are what you talked about, how do you really get about doing it. Things are not as organized, and things are not as automated as what they are in the Western world. But I think that also creates the opportunity to put those things right, and that itself, with every adversity, there's an opportunity for a business model to come in and support these things. But in recent times, what I've seen is that, you know, when you start understanding how the system works, you can actually help the system improve as well. And people are willing to work with you to help improve that system. Whether it's, you know, supporting them with, you know, just the communication part. Because I think a lot of these issues are generally because there isn't communication on how things need to be done. Even for Sri Lankans to get things done, it's sometimes very complex. And I'm building a house at the moment, and the complexities of just getting electricity is unbelievable. And those are things that we have to go through. But the good thing is the system is improving, and I think knowledge base coming in to help improve the system would probably be a good way of addressing some of those. The second thing is, I think a lot of these forums are being created within the Chamber of Commerce's, within the Lanka Angel Networks, etc., to help support people like yourself. And the good thing about Sri Lanka is a network called Machan. And if you get into that Machan network, you should be able to get most of those things done. Please.
Shalin, any thoughts on that? You know.
Pretty much the same thing. Like you said, it's an opportunity. There's so many opportunities working out of Sri Lanka. Something we didn't discuss is we have some FTAs in place, which our company does use. So going into India, for instance, we go in duty-free for our products, which is a great advantage. And if it wasn't in place, it would have been very difficult for us. So like that, there are certain advantages of working out of Sri Lanka as well. There are incentives for manufacturers and so on. So the red tape is just a little bit of the negatives that we have to put up with. And like Nathan said, it is evolving. And we see it every year. It gets a little better. a few things get worse, but most things are getting better. But there are advantages being a manufacturer in Sri Lanka, and there are advantages, especially if you want to tap into big markets like India. This is a good place to work from.
5 steps forward, 1 step back. But I remember maybe 15 years, 16 years ago, trying to get a telephone line. You know, you'd be on a waiting list for a year. Today you can get a telephone within a day. You can get your passport done within a few hours. So things are evolving, and maybe not as fast as we'd like it to sometimes, but changes will happen and will have to happen because, you know, we've all got businesses, we're all lobbying, and government has to take notice.
Sorry, Manju. I think just to take again apologies for this thing, but I think the chambers are a good place for you to maybe start a discussion on the challenges that you have faced, because I know both business chambers, the National Chamber as well as the Sri Lankan Chamber, actually has forums that can help the entrepreneurs to sort out some of these issues, or at least guide you in terms of, you know, what needs to be done, pre-preparation kind of thing. So, you know, it might be actually helpful for you to start a discussion with them.
My question is for the panel, see how to see our economy going, perhaps in 25, 35 years' time. Do they see our economy something like Taiwan today, not just to further the day-to-day issues? Where do they see our economy is perhaps in my generation? As a country.
I think the economy is progressing quite well. It has its challenges, and you know, I'm not an economist to sort of give you technical solutions to those challenges, but the good thing is people are willing to come and invest in Sri Lanka. Second thing is Sri Lanka has a great track record of delivering what they promise, and as an exporter, I can tell you that Sri Lanka is up there, it's #1 in the world in terms of compliance, in terms of giving solutions to customers that are innovative, and also having long-term relationship with a lot of the brands that we work with, our competitors work with, and all the exporters work with, whether it's Japan or in the US. And therefore, it's created itself a niche itself, because within the people who work in these organizations, there's a level of sort of acceptance or level of need that people are looking at. And you know, there was an earlier conversation here about you know, people being lost in both the service industries as well as the brand in Shalin's area. MAS is the biggest training pool for these staff actually, because we encourage people to come into the organization as freshers. We teach them English, we teach them computers, we teach them how to go out on the road and work in service organizations. And we lose people to companies like this, so they are our biggest culprit of taking people away from our organization. But that itself for us is a great thing, because we're seeing people evolving from manufacturing into the service industry. And you know, yes, we are losing people, but we are also appreciative of that because of the fact that that's creating another opportunity in the economy. We've got banks and supermarkets in places that did not exist 5 years ago, in the north, the east, you know, central or the south. And I think therefore the economy in those areas are also coming up. Now, to compare ourselves and say we want to be a Malaysia or Thailand, etc., it's very difficult at this stage. If we get our policies right in the next 3 to 5 years, I think we have the opportunity of becoming a Malaysia or a Thailand or even a Singapore. At this moment, we've got those things. There are certain things that need to be put in place, but I think the track record so far in terms of giving that opportunity for businesses to rise is there in the economy. As somebody said here, I think if you don't have, if you have no involvement in requiring anything from the government and you're starting your own private organization, I think the opportunities are endless for you. If you are relying on government for your business model, then I think, you know, you are restricted in the way that you grow.
But just taking it a little bit forward, Anarkali, from a investment bank's perspective, I mean, you guys probably look at, the economy from now, and you're expecting the economy to do something in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, can you give us a little bit of insight there?
So I think, to answer your question, that we're seeing the country's grown at an average of sort of 7 to 7.5% over the last 5 years, right? And if you look at either the IMF or the government's own projections, we're looking at something like 6.5 to 7% growth for the next 4 to 5 years, right? With our income levels essentially doubling. I think, I talk to foreign investors regularly, and the people who are already investing now see us growing to a $100 billion economy within the next 3 years, right? And that, once you hit that box, then the momentum grows that much more exponentially. I think as Nathan says, as long as we get our fundamentals right, then the ability to grow is just that much greater. You can already see the huge investment by the Chinese, who have understood the geographical significance of Sri Lanka and are investing significantly. Equally, global investors are looking at us as a country that has significant potential because of, one is obviously the tourism angle. The IT sector is growing rapidly, and our socio-demographics are much more in line with Southeast Asia than our South Asian neighbors. So a lot of those key factors are in place, and there's certain things that we have to get through. Like there's red tape. These are issues that as growing economies you're going to see this. If we can get that right, then I think we have a great potential for this country.
There's another question that goes on with, and that's this trickle down upward. There are people discount with wages of 5,000 rupees per month. It's probably something we have earned in 1 hour in Europe.
Stand and wait.
So we start trickle down economy. How can we make sure that something will work on this?
Nathan?
I think it depends on ethics of organizations as well. I sit in front of you and I can tell you that none of our people get 5,000 rupees. We employ 70,000 people in this country. And sometimes the myth of people thinking there are a lot of people getting 5,000 rupees is also incorrect, because most organizations within Sri Lanka who employ correct, actually the labor laws in this country are very good for employees, and I think because of that a lot of people don't get below the minimum wage. And most companies pay above the minimum wage because the biggest thing is turnover of individuals. So I'm not sure whether it's a myth, but there are people I know who are below the poverty line who need to get up into those lines. But I can tell you from an organization point of view, we employ 70,000 people and our minimum wages are 4 times what they are of the country's regulations.
Anyone else want to add to that?
I think when you're talking about seeing more equality in terms of development, and as your example was how do we become sort of Taiwan, which has, rather than where you have a very small percentage of extremely wealthy people and then have a large number of relatively poor people, where there's more equal growth. Yeah, there's more inequality. So I think one of the ways to address that is entrepreneurship. I think if we have the ecosystem for entrepreneurs and their ability to grow businesses, be they small or large, that's one way to address that inequality.
I think we can take one last question if there is.
Yes, Manju, there's a question here.
Hi. My question is for David, and want to touch on the final thing you said about people leaving the country and when you train them, me being a young entrepreneur and a hospitality consultant, I want to know what is stopping you from taking ownership of that problem and giving a solution without saying that's the salary scale that is structured. Because
I get your point. We do pay like 2 times.
But why are they running then?
Sorry?
You said that because of your basic salary structure.
No, but we've got a solution to that. That's what we're doing. We pay like 2 times I'm competing with the 5-star hotel, what they pay. And I mean, there are a lot of things like masters for their staff that we do, you know, and yeah, we do that.
Because this is something that I've been here for 2 years, and as a hospitality consultant, everybody keeps saying that hospitality doesn't pay. But I know the companies which are making money and the companies which are not making money. So I just want to know the science and the concept behind it, because if we know that, if you and I know that you're making money and that's why you're here in a panel, the easy way to say that is our salary structure. And if you and I know that people are leaving for a better salary, and you and I know that donkeys will never become horses, what is the solution that we are going to give to attract not only locals but as well as foreigners, that this industry, which is going to be one of the largest and most important industries of our country?
I mean, that's something as a whole we'll have to look at, because I mean, if you say that, I mean, I can't pay someone who gets paid the same wage in Melbourne. You know, I mean, I used to have a hotel in Melbourne. We used to pay a barman $40 an hour. I mean, if you do that, you'd be selling a beer here for like...
But that's not the problem we are facing, are we? We're not looking for general managers. We are having service people who are leaving for 25,000 to 30,000 rupees for Dubai, because our bartenders are paid 12,000 rupees a month. So the problem is, we're not talking about GMs and CEOs and finance officers coming here. We need the basic, the lower level people working here and not leaving. And that problem is a 10 to 12,000 rupee problem, where people are actually leaving to Male or Dubai for 25 to 30,000 rupees. And our bartenders are getting paid 10 to 12,000. Our service people are getting paid 9 to 12 to 13,000 rupees. How can you expect them to really grow or even come to work on that salary? I just want to know from you, because I face that problem on a day-to-day basis, because when I consult on people and tell them to pay people, and they always keep saying, but it's hospitality. I just want to know from someone who's running a business.
I can't speak for the rest of the hotels or restaurants. I don't pay 12,000 rupees, you know. Like,
No.
So, I mean, it's... I mean, I can't answer that question for other people. Like, my staff don't get paid 12,000 rupees, you know. They won't be working there. So that's industry as whole, you know.
But what do you think
isn't there a cyclical thing here now? I mean, eventually, if you get a group of people that the business is basically fundamentally leveraging off, you'll anyway do whatever to keep them. You don't want to lose them.
No.
So, you know, it's eventually going to change. I hear what you're saying, and, you know, a lot of businesses are losing people to Male or to Dubai.
And
but,
also,
you know, you can't, unless, of course, clients are also willing to pay the extra amount of money, right? I mean, it is almost impossible for businesses like David's and the others who are just starting up to say they can stop the whole leakage or, you know, of staff leaving. It's just that they're going to have to find systems to, you know, survive this particular phase. Eventually, when, you know, they realize that now the pay is good enough for them to stay here, you know, I don't know, that's just my thoughts.
I think one other thing, Manju, is that, you know, I've heard a lot of people ask questions about pay scales and how, you know, how quickly are these going to rise. One of the key things here is we need productivity to rise.
Yeah.
It's not just about pay scales. There has to be greater productivity for these pay scales to go up, because otherwise it's just inflationary. That doesn't make sense for us as a nation. You know, we've got to have increased productivity out of our labor force.
There's also another little problem in the lowest scale. We employ spa therapists, and a lot of them we get unskilled labor, train them for 3+ months and get them going, and they end up earning really good money. Then there's this mentality of Rata unknown, Dubai unknown, right? So not necessarily for more money, but there is this mentality, if I go abroad, I will be successful. In the last year, we've had 5 guys go and come back. We've taken them back because they're trained good staff. Because they've gone with the hopes of, you know, grass is greener, I'll earn much more money. They know exactly how much they're getting, which is 5,000 rupees more than they're getting here, but they've gone anyway. So there is a bit of a mindset problem as well, which we need to fix.
And I think that's there in every industry. I mean, whether we pay 15 or 20,000, we still have those people leaving as well. So cycle that sort of comes back. So we have a lot of people coming and rejoining us as well now from that experience. And truly some of those experiences are great for the country as well, because the experiences they get overseas, they reuse that within our organizations as well.
I hope we've addressed your... I think we're up for time, so I'd like to thank the panel, and I think the message coming out loud and clear is this is a land of opportunity. Yes, we've got a few issues. Who doesn't? So get on that plane, sell your house in London or wherever it is, and bring that foreign exchange here, right? Because you're going to make tons of money. You know, the window is shutting, and it's shutting fast, so on your boats. And so thank you, panel. It was wonderful. And organizers, wonderful show. Thank you very much.